Everybody's muted, so I can't tell if you're
All
ready.
right.
Okay, thanks. All right, so good morning. My name's Kevin Dean. My company's WSI Net Advantage. The four things that we do are we build websites, we help companies be found on search, we help them advertise on the internet, and we also help them with social media management. Today, I've got a little presentation that talks about just kind of a website checklist, especially for small businesses. Either you're looking at your current site, you're thinking of a new site, and some ways that it interacts with some of the other portions that you might work on. So hopefully you'll find it helpful. If you got any questions, give me a call. So Doug, you might recognize this, this picture here. I've been working with Doug a little bit on some of his website recommendations, especially as he's thinking of trying to take advantage of the home office aspect versus what he's currently doing with the office furniture aspect. So some of the things that we've talked about is there's 3 or 4 basic items that you really need to make sure that your website captures very quickly. And especially with small businesses where there isn't necessarily a brand name, you're competing against other folks who might be bigger than you. And it's not necessarily obvious that what you do, where you do it. So the first thing is you need to make sure that it's easy to know what you do. I've run into a number of websites that people have asked me to review that do not have, say, a relevant picture. It's kind of something that they like, but not necessarily something that resonates quickly with identifying what they do to the visitor. It really needs to be easy to navigate. This site does that very well with the about and the office furniture right up at the top. One of the things that I suggested to Doug is that, especially with the home office aspect of it, is to create a separate area for home office. And if he specializes in ergonomics, maybe even bring that up as well, so that people don't have to dig. They can see very quickly with even the light amount of words what he does. It's good to know, it's good to see that it's easy to read. So some people have content that is in a script that can be very difficult to read. Sometimes the print is too small. Sometimes it's too big. Big print can be uncomfortable. It's almost like you're yelling. So it has to be something that stands out and is legible against the background, but is easy to read. One of the things I recommended for Doug here is that it's really hard to tell where he works out of. The phone number is in a tiny spot up in the upper left-hand corner, which suggests the 408, but there's really nothing else here that suggests that he's in the Bay Area. Forget about San Jose. So my recommendation is to always include, especially as a small business, what you do and where are you located. And even though he does have the Contact Us button in the upper right-hand corner, which forces a click, and remember, about half or a third of the people will not click. They want to see everything on the home page. There is access. The upper left-hand corner for the phone number is a little bit out of the ordinary. Usually people read left to right, so they create awareness as to where they are. And then the phone number and contact is usually in the upper right. So that's something to think about as you're laying out your web pages. Your website has to be mobile friendly. Well, all of us carry around a cell phone. Some use it more than others. With your the old style thought process as well, you know, you saw a website that looked like the one on the right with the tiny print, and a lot of business owners said, well, if they want to see it on a mobile phone, they can unpinch their fingers and expand the screen, and that's not very helpful to the person. And as well, Google is starting to penalize those sites. So as Google starts to index your site, they're going to say, is it mobile friendly? And if it's not, you're going to instantly get dinged. Now, the range of people who use mobile phones for websites is somewhere between 20 and 80%. It's a wide range. There's no doubt about it. Google Analytics will tell you what type of traffic comes to your website. Business-to-business buyers mostly work from a desktop all day long, and they're probably around the 20%. Equipment manufacturers, maybe engineers. But as you get consumer related, more and more are mobile. And so based on that, from directions, phone numbers, services, they're on a walk with their dog and they think that they want to look for something, the mobile device is really important. So you should always think about having everything on your site finger friendly, right? Your finger is this big. And so that being so is that your navigation, your phone number links, your menus, all those items ought to be what I call finger friendly. If it's smaller than that, then they may click the wrong link. They might not be able to see it, and it makes it difficult to navigate. Your images should be big enough to see, but not so big that they dominate. A lot of the templates that are out there are responsive. Responsive means looks good on a big screen and responds down to a small screen. But you want to test it thoroughly because sometimes the theme can break. Maybe you added extra text or an overly large image or something like that. You also need to make sure that it loads quickly. After about 4 or 5 seconds of people waiting for a website to load, they're going to go away. They're going to think it's broken because now we're, especially here in the Bay Area, we know we have pretty good access to the internet. But a lot of locations still have 3G, especially as you work in Northern California, Central California, and Eastern California. So you need to take into example as to where your clients might be coming from, and if their connections are slower, maybe go light on the images. That way that it loads quickly. Your phone numbers, and especially if you have an office, the maps need to be easy to find so that someone who's driving along can punch the map, get the instructions, and not veer off the road. So what you want to be able to do is to make sure, think about how your user is going to use your site, and with as few clicks as possible, be able to find the information. Also, forms on a mobile website are really hard to fill out, both between getting your finger to the right field as well as punching in all the information. So you may want to limit the form fields. And now there's a lot of text opportunities. So you might even consider a text option if you're able there to respond to text. There's a lot of information on the screen, but the essence of it is that you really need to think about how Google picks up your website. I've worked with a number of small business owners, and usually after the fact when they say, well, I built my website, but I really didn't care if Google found it or not. And to me, that's a waste because Google is omnipresent in everybody's life. 93% of searches occur on Google properties. So if you ignore Google, and to think about the number of people who search and what they search for, it's sure a lot better than cold calling, let me tell you. So from that perspective, is the content is king. You really need to say what you do in a very clear and searcher-friendly voice. So in other words, as a business owner, don't think about what you sell, think about what people buy. And so if you are a technical person, sure, there's a lot of technical items that people may be searching for. But if you're a service provider or you solve people's problems, a little bit of research or review of asking them what exactly they are searching for might help you focus your website so that they can find it better. If you build your website, there's a section of your website builder that's called meta tags. And what that means are the titles and descriptions of what your pages are about. If you go to Google today, you're going, whatever you search for, it doesn't matter. You're always going to see a nice big blue line with big blue text and then some gray text underneath it. That big blue text is called your title. And all of your website builders have a title section for it. And don't just put your company name, because if someone doesn't know who you are and they go and they see you up there, your company name probably is not really helpful. So really you want to say what you do, unless your name is like West Coast Office Solutions here, right? So Your Better Office, the best place to get office furniture, is pretty good. But the furniture aspect of it, office furniture aspect, is at the end. So a better title for this page might be Bay Area Office Furniture, good prices, great selection, something along those lines, which then right away people know it's an office furniture and it has a little bit of a salesy aspect to it, that they might get a good price on it. The gray area below is the description. That's also available to you on each of your website pages. And so within about 150 characters and spaces, what is that page about? Not what your business is about, what is the page about? So for each of your services, for each of your products, should each have their own title and description. And then what it does, Google will pick it up and then it'll index it, and that's the part that it's going to show on the internet. And then so as people might find your web pages, they know more about what you do and is far more likely to be able to click than just what your name is and maybe just no description. I'm not going to get into Google Analytics, but Google Analytics is free. So everybody likes free. And even if you don't look at it a lot, what it does is it creates some historical data. So if you ever ask for help, and what that does, Google takes a look at where people come from, how long they stay on your site. Maybe you have a referral partner that is sending people to you. You can see how much. If you're making sales on your website, Google can even track that. I know a lot of people who invest money into websites and then they don't know how much traffic they get. So they're disappointed, or they're proud in their website and disappointed in how much traffic it gets. So without actually tracking it, you really don't know if your investment is paying off. There's other things to track too. You can track phone calls. We recommend a service called CallRail, which starts at about $30 a month. But if you're advertising and you use search engine marketing and you use Facebook and you use email marketing, a system like CallRail will replace your phone number. And then as someone goes to your website and calls that particular phone number, it knows whether they came in via search, ads, direct, email, or social. And you can see which ones generate the most leads for you. So if you're spending a lot of time and energy and maybe money on social media and you don't know what you're getting from it, a tracking phone number is a big help, especially if you're looking for calls. Another method is called Visual Visitor, which is a little bit of code that you add to your website, and it can reverse look up from the IP address who's coming to your website. It doesn't always know the exact person, but it will know the company. A lot of text here. Really what I'm trying to say is to use a solid web builder tool. You kind of get what you pay for. WordPress is very popular. About half the sites on the internet are built on WordPress. It can be a little bit complicated, but once it's set up, it's really easy to use, and it essentially has an unlimited number of pages, a lot of flexibility, a lot of tools for galleries, but you need to select your templates wisely. Everybody and their brother over time became a website developer and developed design templates and things, and you don't always know the source of it, so you want to make sure that you're working with someone who understands the web. The free website builders, or the cheap ones, are okay. Squarespace, Wix, Shopify, GoDaddy, Weebly, all of them have good quality tools. However, there's a lot of trade-offs involved with those as well. Sometimes there's limited options. You might just not like what you see for options. Some make for sloppy designs because you have almost too much flexibility and it takes too much time and skill. Some of the templates they offer aren't friendly on mobile, even though they say they are. You're going to want to check it out. And sometimes too, they're just not search engine friendly. You're not able to manage enough items on your website to make it work. So you really should understand your goals and understand the product's weaknesses. Cheap is good to get started, and that's fine. But if you want to become aggressive and you want a good business website, I strongly suggest that you look for something a little more custom. What a lot of folks forget is the call to action. They'll list their services, they'll say how great they are, they'll talk about where they're at, and then they forget to say, call us. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but less than half of the people who go onto a web page scroll beyond the fold. So they'll come to a page and they'll stop and they'll look. And if you don't tell them what you want them to do, most of the time they'll say, well, that's interesting. But if you put on a form, a phone number, an offer, things like that, let them know your hours of operation. Maybe you're going to give them a free consultation or a review of their work, a health assessment, whatever it might be. Keep it up on the top half of the page because most people don't scroll to the bottom. If you're concerned about that, there's a good tool. It's called Crazy Egg that you can put on your website, and it will show you where people click and how far they scroll and what they work on their website. So it's a great way to be able to assess how people are actually using your website. As a business owner, you may say, well, I get a lot of spammy form submissions. I don't really, they're not really applicable to me. So one of the things that you can do is you can always go and create a longer form. It kind of sounds counterintuitive, but if you're wasting time for people who give quick submissions, or maybe you think they're spam, make the form a little bit more complex. And that way you know that they're serious if they've spent the time and they're just not out there grabbing for leads or searching for information, or they could even be your competitor, just kind of fishing around for prices. So make sure that your phone number is prominent. Make sure that what you want them to do is prominent. A form is a great way to go. An email address is okay, and it kind of depends on your industry. You might want to test it out. We had a client who was in manufacturing, and we had a lot of forms on their website as well as email addresses. And we saw that the emails were being populated a lot, and they didn't have a customer resource management tool, a CRM. So they were just going into people's inboxes. So instead, what we did was we removed the email address and said, well, this way we can track the forms. And their leads dropped by almost 75%. And what we discovered was that engineers, for instance, much prefer to send an email than to fill out a form. So by understanding what your marketplace prefers, you can actually improve or hurt, in our case, the lead generation by providing options or removing options for how to contact you. Social media, social media, everybody wants to try to do it. I thought that Doug had a pretty good social media page. He hadn't posted for a while here. But one of the key things that you want to look at if you're going to take advantage of social media is your community. And that's right down here in the lower right-hand corner. So, and in LinkedIn, you can also see the number of connections. The issue that I had mentioned to Doug is that he has 58 people who follow his posts. And the problem is that every time he posts, only 58 people are going to see him. Now, if they're his networking partner and closest friends, then he's not really getting out in front of his customers. So one of the challenges of social media is the time that you spend posting, it may just be a limited distribution. So you really want to try to build up your followers, build up your connections. You may do it through a $10 ads, boosted posts, going out and linking with other folks, and kind of as a courtesy, they can link back to you. But if you have not built up your community yet, and you're spending a lot of time on social media, I hate to say it, but you're kind of wasting your time because your reach is very, very limited. Now you want to make sure that your image is good. You want to make sure that your logo is professional. You want to make sure that your contact information is sound. Your About Us page, if you have any review, fill it with photos. Fill out all of these options, right? And you want to just make sure that it has a really good representation of you if you plan on posting it to your website. In a lot of situations, we'll find that the Facebook link, for instance, at the bottom of a business website goes to their Facebook page, but the last time they posted was 2016. So it's obviously a waste of time for someone to go visit. And so if you're not going to pay attention to it, remove the links from your website. So just in summary, it is 2020. We are 25 years into the internet, and we're still learning about it. We're still trying to take advantage of what people, how people use the web, what they do. The reality is that people will visit your site and other sites before they contact you. The last thing they want to do is to talk to a salesperson. And so that being the case, your site should be informative, easy to read, with features and benefits, and also a good, easy way to contact you. Historically, there was a little version called Flash, which a lot of people really like because it created motion. And the problem is now the browsers are not tolerating Flash. It's too heavy, it's too antiquated, it can be hacked. So if you have Flash on your website, make sure to remove it. If you have an older community that's reading your website, look out for tiny text, because I don't know about you, but I have to put on glasses and still I can't see a lot of the stuff on the internet. So need to make sure that your text is the right size. So know your demographics. Don't hide your navigation. Use standard location, use standard terminology, use standard placement. In mobile, you see those little 3 lines, we call it the hamburger. Use that. Don't let somebody convince you that there's another cool way to do it. Because the more standard you are, the less confused people will be. A lot of businesses like to have those scrolling images that go through, that have different things. People maybe look at the first 1 or 2 and they'll never see the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So really limit what your scrolling images are, because it can really detract from your web page. Know what you want to say and say what you want to do. And then last of all, for the most effective way to help is to tell visitors what you want them to do next. So thank you very much for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions or you'd like me to review anything, just let me know. Send me an email, give me a call, and then I'd be glad to help. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you. That was really, really great. Wow, thank you.
Oh, thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
So now I get to follow you next week. Thanks.
A little testimonial. Kevin did my website for me. What was it, 15 years ago?
A long time ago, yeah.
And so he's been supporting me for all these years. And I don't do a lot of marketing on my website, but I do send people to it because they can get quotes and actually apply through my website. And so Kevin, I've known Kevin for a long time, and he does a great job. So I recommend him highly.
Thank you, Rich.